Have you ever stood in a museum, looked at some ancient sculpture or a restored Renaissance painting, and just wondered, how did they decide what to fix and what to leave alone? It's a huge puzzle, right? Well, the key to solving it lies in the brilliant philosophy of an Italian thinker named Cesare Brandi, and his theory totally changed the game for how we care for our cultural treasures.
So, let's start with the big one. When a masterpiece gets damaged, by time, by an accident, whatever, what's the actual goal? Are we trying to hit rewind and make it look perfectly brand new, like it just left the artist's studio? Or is there something else, something deeper that we should be aiming for? This is the central question that Cesare Brandi's whole theory is built to answer.
Brandi kicks things off with an idea that's actually super simple, but also really profound. He says, look, a hunk of marble, some canvas and paint, they're just stuff. They only become a work of art in that specific moment when a person, a human consciousness, recognizes it as art. Without us, without that moment of recognition, the art doesn't really exist in the world. It's just potential.
And that idea leads us straight to his core definition, which totally reframes what restoration is. For Brandi, it's not a simple repair job. He calls it a methodological moment, which is a fancy way of saying it's a critical thinking process. It's about recognizing everything the artwork is, its physical material, its beauty, and its history, all with one goal in mind: to pass it on to the future.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. At the very heart of Brandi's theory is this idea of a fundamental conflict. He argues that every single work of art makes two different, competing demands on us, and these demands are often pulling the restorer in completely opposite directions. Understanding this tension is the key to everything.
So, on one hand, you have the aesthetic instance. This is the artwork as art. It's the part of it that demands we appreciate its beauty, its form, its artness, if you will. But on the other hand, you have the historical instance. This is the artwork as a historical document, a thing that was made at a certain time and place and that carries the real physical marks of its long journey through history to get to us. So you see the problem, right? Any restorer is caught in this constant tug-of-war between the artwork's beauty and its history.
So what do? Do you prioritize making it beautiful again, which might mean erasing some of its history? Or do you preserve every last bit of that history, even if it leaves the piece looking, well, damaged? This is the tightrope every restorer has to walk. So how does Brandi suggest we find our balance?
Well, Brandi's solution is it's so elegant and profound. He says the goal is not to try and return an artwork to some fantasy version of its original state. No, the real aim, he says, is to reestablish its potential unity. So what on earth does that mean? It means you don't try to create a fake, complete image. You don't guess what was in the missing pieces and paint it in. Instead, you work with the fragments you actually have, and you do just enough to help the viewer's mind bridge the gaps, to perceive the whole that is potentially still there. It's all about suggesting, not falsifying.
And to pull this off, Brandi makes this brilliant distinction between two kinds of material in any artwork. First, there's matter as aspect. That's the part we actually see, the image, like the layer of paint on a canvas. Then there's matter as structure. That's the physical support, like the wooden panel under the paint. For Brandi, the image, the aspect, always comes first. You can replace a rotting wood panel to save the painting that's on it, but you can never, ever replace the painting itself.
All right, so from all of this big picture philosophy, Brandi gives us three clear, practical principles. You can think of these as the golden rules that create a real-world framework for any restoration project. But first, before we get to the rules, we gotta talk about patina. For Brandi, the gentle aging, the subtle darkening, the soft wear that an object gets over centuries, that's not damage. He poetically calls it the very sedimentation of time on the work. It's part of the artwork's story, its life after it was created, and that story has to be respected.
This whole philosophy leads directly to three super practical rules. Number one, any new material you add has to be recognizable. So from a distance, it might help create that sense of a whole, but when you get up close, you should always be able to tell what's original and what's the restoration. No faking it. Number two, everything you do has to be reversible. We have to be humble enough to know that future generations might have better science or better ideas, so we can't do anything that they can't undo. And number three, you guessed it, respect the patina. That means no harsh, aggressive cleaning that strips away an object's history just to make it look shiny and new.
So, why does all of this careful, methodical, philosophical thinking really matter? I mean, why not just fix things to look nice and call it a day? Well, the answer gets to the very heart of why we preserve art in the first place. What Brandi's theory really teaches us is that restoration isn't just a craft. It's an act of profound, intellectual, and ethical responsibility. It's not about making a damaged object look perfect. It's about preserving its authentic story, both its creation and its life through time, so that it can be passed on honestly and completely to the future. It's about being responsible stewards of our shared memory.
And that leaves us with a really modern challenge, doesn't it? Brandi gave us this incredible ethical framework for physical things, for paintings and statues. But what happens when the art is digital? When a piece of net art stops working because of a software update or an early interactive website just disappears from the internet forever? What does it even mean to restore the potential unity of something that was never really a fixed object to begin with? It's a huge question that Brandi's principles challenge us to answer right here in the 21st century.